Okay. Hello, good morning, and welcome back to the Create and Hang with me, Nick. Today, lost my train of thought there. It is 10 o'clock, which is a good part of the morning. Did the workout, and ready to go. So, as you may or may not know, I am continuing on with my Harry Potter RPG. Last time was not the greatest stream, I would say. It was, to say the least, a little dry because I was essentially just staring at the screen, trying to do math, and doing math by itself, depending on the person and what you're doing, can be a little boring. But watching somebody else do math, maybe less so. So, needless to say, I'm hoping today will be a little bit more interesting. I did some work off-screen, so at the very least there will be less math. Rather than me jib-jab about all of that, why don't we go ahead and jump in, and I'll get you up to speed on where I am. So, I'm just going to go over some stuff I've done previously really quickly. So, when I was trying to figure out the system here for Harry Potter, I felt it was very important to keep spellcasting not super crazy simple. Oh, thank you, motorcycle. Thank you for arriving right on time. Not super simple, like oversimplified, but not overcomplicated either. The whole point of Harry Potter is to have fun, cast spells, and like do crazy stuff and see fantastical, mythical things. So I didn't want to overcomplicate it. There should be a skill check involved, though, of some sort. So I very quickly decided that I wanted to be a success system where you either succeed or you don't. And then there's probability involved depending on how you set it up. And this whole page here was me looking at how the statistics worked for each die, depending on how many successes you required. So if you needed 1, 2, 3, or more successes, and then what the level on the die would be, whether that's you need a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, or higher. And that's what this entire nonsense is about. And very quickly, I discovered two things. One, if the number of successes, or rather the level of success is the same, for example, if you need just one success but you're rolling 2 die, the statistics don't really change at all. It stays consistent. On the flip side, if I have the let me see over here. Let me jump over to this page. The problem is if I keep the successes required. This is kind of where I was running into a problem last time, where I was trying to figure out what I should have stay the same, and essentially what I figured out was if I keep the number of successes required, so in other words, if you always need, say, 2 successes, the same, then at some point the players are going to be rolling higher than that number all of the time, regardless of what that level of success is. So it kind of makes the number of dice irrelevant, because you are basically going to say, okay, you only need 2 successes, and then at that point, it doesn't matter if you're rolling 3, 4, 5, or 6 dice. And I figured that wasn't going to work. So I've decided early on, and this is where we made some progress here, that the level of success is going to be fixed. And that's always going to be basically 2 or higher. So as long as you don't roll a 1, you will successfully cast the spell. However, with that said, I can change how many of those successes you need. And then this is where the stats basically come into play. Now you'll notice that over here, the number of dice rolled, I'm not listing out every single outcome. Because, for example, if I'm rolling 2 dice, but I only require 1 success, it's the exact same statistics if I was just rolling 1 die, because you essentially only need to get that specified number on the other die, and then you can get all the other outcomes. So, statistically speaking, it is the exact same chance. So that's what all these numbers mean. So with that, now that I've brought you up to speed, I've brought you into the fold, you now have a better idea of where I am with this. Let me take a quick swig of water because it is muggy today. I did my workout like a good fella supposed to. And, needless to say, I am... All the endorphins are going, but my body's like, oh my god, eat, and you need water. So I'm just trying to pay attention to that. Anyway, so now that I've kind of ironed that out, this is basically taking a look at the statistical chances of the dice rolls. So we've got the dice type, the number of dice you will roll, the number of successes required, assuming that the level of success is always 2 or higher, and then these are the chances. And I actually like how this is laid out. It's not super it's not super crazy lean toward one side, and it's not impossible for something to succeed. So I kind of took a little bit of inspiration from Dungeons and Dragons on this. I think I talked about it's called Armour Class. So I took a look at these are all the monsters I looked at for a level 1 character. Surprisingly, some of them were a little bit higher. With higher AC, but they had other, what's the word I'm looking for? They had other detriments to the character. So I averaged all that out, and average AC was about 12. Now, just rolling that on the die means you need a 12 or higher, so you have about a 45% chance of hitting the target number. That actually seems... Yeah, because it's that should be higher, though, shouldn't it? Hold on. So you've got... Basically, you need 12 or higher on the die, so it's 12... No, it's not 12 numbers. You need a 12 or... This is where I got messed up, because it's not 12 numbers or higher. Anything below 12 doesn't count, so you actually need... counting 12, so 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So it's 9 out of 20, which should be, whoop, that's 22. All right, so 45%, sorry. That's where I got mixed up last time. However, you also have extra bonuses that apply, and when you, I'm not going to go through all that. That's another talk. But essentially, you are looking at somewhere between 55 to 80% success depending on other attributes. So that's kind of where I wanted my stats to be. I needed the level of success to be somewhere around that 60 to 80% success rate. Because, again, this comes down to making sure the player feels like they're actually doing something and the task is not super steep. This has to do with essentially something called flow rate. I definitely encourage you to look it up. Essentially, and I talk about this in a bunch of other places in regards to game design, where essentially it's making sure that you're in that right sweet spot between something being too hard and too easy and meeting your skill level. If it's way too hard, you're going to give up because it's going to feel like an impossible task. If it's too easy, you're going to get bored and you're going to leave around. So you need to kind of like get that sweet zone. In the case of an RPG where you're rolling dice and there's chance involved, you want to make sure that the chances are pretty good so that there's it feels like the player is like using their skills. And there's other things we can tie into that to let the player make choices and use other skills associated with that. And that's kind of what I have to look into as well. Now, there's something else along with that. Because I figured having 5 levels of difficulty would be pretty good, because if we look at the the statistics over here, you can see that as we increase this number, you can see that for D4s, this ratchets up pretty quickly. Even for like a D8, you still at like a 50% for getting 5. But once you start getting into higher areas, now this is becoming more likely to succeed. So I kind of like how this is spread out so far. I'm feeling pretty good about that. Now, I did come up with some terminology for spell or task difficulty, because remember, this is Harry Potter after all. Where's my core system here? My aspect of magic. So in addition to spell work, we're also going to have these sort of attributes that are going to go into different areas of Harry Potter. So this isn't just for spell level, it's also for the level of difficulty associated with it. And then, of course, we've got more physical stuff. we got to iron that out. But this is sort of my triangle system for like the different attributes. So overall, you're going to have 9 attributes in Harry Potter, which I find pretty interesting. But they're all going to be used in specific areas. We're going to come back to this in a little bit because we need to have this apply into our specific system here. Now, the spell task or difficulty, I have the 5 levels, which matches with over here. But I wanted to make sure that we used specific language with Harry Potter because, you know, language is weird. I am not the best when it comes to languages, you know, and my writing skills are, I wouldn't say they're horrible, but they could be improved. So that's something else I'm doing on my own. But language is going to denote how something, you know, feels and how it's described, if it's clear or not. And also, I mean, look at, you know, the Harry Potter books. They use a very specific set of language and, you know, storytelling to give it that Harry Potter feel. So I kind of wanted to see if I could do that. So over here, we've got 1 success is a simple task. A level 2 is tricky. A level 3 is complex. Level 4 is baffling. And level 5 is implausible. I kind of like that. Alright. Now, something else. I just threw this in over here for notes later. I haven't quite dived into how I want this to work yet. But I figured we can either make these spell classifications or maybe feats. Basically, we're like, depending on the type of spell, just to add like another layer to it, is to classify a spell type. So like, for example, risky. It can have great benefits if it's cast successfully, but if you fail, maybe it like gives the player damage, or it gives them a specific effect that doesn't help so well. And of course, we've got the forbidden spells, where maybe like they are super powerful, but they maybe like lower your reputation, again, maybe have some negative effects. Maybe there's like an intense spell where you need to make sure you get like at least a 6 on a die in order to cast successfully. Like, there are different like spell levels that we can play, or classifications we can play around with to add a little bit more flavor to the spell casting. And then like maybe like subtle is like a spell or a feat or something. Maybe I might put that in a feat, where like you can cast there we go. So maybe you can cast like level, like maybe you can cast simple spells, or maybe you can cast simple charm spells without drawing attention to yourself. So you can kind of like do it under your breath without having to make a, you know, stealth check or something. Cast without making spell check. Obviously, I think that's going to have to be balanced out, because if you're doing like this, you know, implausible level spell, you know, that's really just very complex. So I have to use my language appropriately. So this implausible spell, obviously we don't want it to, you know, just be like, I cast it. Like, do I get defense? No, you don't notice. It just hits you. You know, that would be kind of cheap. So we can cast without being noticed, etc. So I definitely think there's going to be a cool way to figure that out. I also need to figure out what some of the die results are. For example, rolling a 1 would be a failure, but what happens if you roll all 1s? What happens if you get a 6 or a max on the die? Like max on the die, like depending on what we're rolling over here, that would be like a perfect casting. Then what if I get like all the dice are maxed out? Is there extra beneficial effects? So again, we're gonna have to level that out. But I think for a start, we're gonna have to experiment to see if all of these levels work halfway decently. Because if this is messed up, then it doesn't matter how many levels we have over here. But I feel really good about this. I'm quite happy with it. The thing we need to think about now is the core system. So right now, we've got the level of trait. So I went with a defense against the dark arts example here. Let's go back to my aspects of magic here. So the way that I have my triangle system worked out here, is essentially you've got your 3 areas of spellcraft. You've got focused, wand work, and pronunciation. Those seem to be the 3 things that I could identify as what allows you to cast a spell in Harry Potter. And basically, the 3 different areas here will allow you to essentially cast spells to different ways. Like, some users in Harry Potter are better at charms. Like, some people are better at transfiguration, and some are better at combat, or better with combat spells. You know, and it's quite possible to have a witch or wizard who's okay in these, but really, like, are more, like, well adept at, say, like divination. Like, I always think of Professor Twani. What is her name? She's got the half moon glasses. Oh, we gotta Google this, because Professor Sybil Trelawney. I think that's how you say it. Yes. Is she supposed to have half moon spectacles? No, that's Albus Dumbledore. She's got the full moon ones, I think. Ah, yes, Sybil. Alright, cool. Taking another swig of water here, because I don't know what happened. Like, after Memorial Day, it's like the mugginess just shoots right up, and I hate it. Okay. So it's quite possible to not even put as many, like, points into this system. Maybe they want to be better at certain skills over here. And then, of course, there's your outward traits. So I want to have a system that allows for that. Because if I just have the die type be determined by the school level, then the players are going to increase their skills very quickly without having put in an effort. And not that's necessarily a bad thing, but I don't think it's a good thing either. You know, part of the, like, magic, no pun intended, of an RPG is, like, getting your skills increased through effort. You know, so I gotta think about this a little bit, because so if you look at other RPGs, basically you gain more skills by leveling up, you know, and I don't think I want to tie the die type into the school level, because depending on the dungeon master, they may want to, like, I don't know how people are going to want to play this. They may want to say, okay, every session is like a school year, you know, and we're only going to play 7 times, you know, and that's enough for us. Some people may say, no, we may just do, like, one game is like 1 semester or 3 months, or another one may be, no, we'll play, like, twice a week, and, you know, that will be, like, a month in game or something, and then they'll play for, like, I don't know, 5 weeks to make it just, like, 1 year. Like, I don't know, and I don't want to set the pace for the Dungeon Masters, because everyone's going to want to play this a little differently, potentially, hopefully. You know, knock on wood. I think what we need to do is figure out how to get these aspects of magic to determine either the number of dice you use, and the die type. So I'm wondering if there's, like, a basic chart that will basically determine, for example, let me see here. So I'm wondering if there's, like, a tiered system where we basically can say, like, here is a chart for, you know, your current level, with, say, you know, if we go over here, all right, so you've got this much in focus, you've got this much in wand work, combine those numbers together, which is kind of what I'm thinking about over here, and then you get a, so that's like your skill level, and then depending on that, that will determine the number of dice and the die type together. So I'm wondering if there's, like, basically just a chart where we can say, okay, your skill level for defense against the dark arts is, I don't know, 15. That means you get this many dice and this many things, and you only have to look up one particular chart for each thing, so you don't have to like go too crazy. So I'm wondering if that's a way we could do that. So I don't know. And then, of course, we'll have to figure out how do we want that to get into feats here. So I think it makes sense to take a look at leveling really quickly. Like, actually, let's come back over to our die statistics here. So, because basically, the way that I kind of see this working is like per school level. Like a D4, like obviously that's going to be first year, right? So let's just do some quick notes here. Let me actually move this over here. Oh, this is in the same spreadsheet. I can't do that. All right. Take another swig of water real quick. Okay. So, well, actually, I should denote this. I do think one thing that would be pretty cool is one aspect of play we can have is having a quote-unquote year zero. Basically, I think a really cool part of the game would be to have oh my god, my nose, why would be to have characters like get their Hogwarts letter, so like have them play a little bit before they actually get to Hogwarts. So that would be like year zero, or essentially, you know, you're undiscovered basically. So this is like if we look at the Harry Potter books, like when Harry was like when Harry like made the glass disappear, like he did that naturally, and this apparently happens with a lot of younger wizards as they don't know how to control their magic, so like all kinds of random stuff happens. So I thought it would be really cool to have a part of the RPG where they essentially get to explore that a little bit. You know, and again, the group can decide, no, we want to go straight to Hogwarts, and they can like do that in their bio, but might as well give them a chance to roleplay it as well. In this particular case, though, because it's so wild and out of, you know, so crazy, I'd probably say you could just use a coin for this. This would essentially be a D2, you know. So the odds are really crazy to see if it works or not. That's something I could flesh out a little bit more, but I just wanted to mention that here. But definitely like a D4 would be, I guess in Harry Potter terms, so 0 year, and this would be first year. To keep it in line with the language. And then, what did I say over here? I definitely think they should get to a D6 for second year and third year. I don't know why I'm doing that differently. Second year and third year. D8 for fourth year. What else have we got here? Oh, nope, it's over here. A D10 for 5th and 6th. And then a D12 would be year, the 7th year. I definitely think, though, to balance this out a little bit is to make sure that, and get that sense of progression, that, again, and I'm doing this not because I want to map this specifically to years, like, I definitely think there should be the potential for, say, a wizard or witch that is in their 7th year, and they're not really committing to their study, so they should, you know, while they should be at a D12 capacity, maybe they're at a D8 or a D10, you know? There's different levels. And then, you know, a D20 would be for, like, you know, like Albus Dumbledore level of craziness. So this is like Grandmaster. I don't know how else to categorize, or Headmaster level or something. I don't know. Like we'll figure that out. But this is just to kind of guide me a little bit. I don't think it's a good idea to have this map specifically to their year, though that would be very easy, admittedly, for me. So let's see. So the first year, they should... Most of the spells they should be casting, because this dips really badly for, you know, if they need 2 successes. So I think... That'd be kind of fun, though, to see if they could pull it off, though. So primary spell level... should be simple, or 1. But I do think they should get up to 2d4. Or maybe introduce the... I'm trying to figure out where it would be good to introduce the number of dice. Like, what is the progression from leveling up not just dice, but how many? Let me see here. I need a different way of marking this, though. So let me pull... Let's pull this over here. Whoop, there we go. So rather than go too crazy here, so for 0 year, it's just a D2. So 1D2 is primarily what you're going to be using. Or possibly... No, just keep it on 1D2. That's fine. For first year, I would say 1D4 to 2D4. Then do we upgrade this to 2D6? Let me just see what this looks like really quickly. So, do I want them to potentially get... Yeah, they're going to max out all 5 at this point. I gotta spread this out a little bit more. I would say by 5th year, they should be at 5D12. Like, that is their absolute max here. So 4D12 or something like that. Like, that's like the absolute maximum that I want players to be at. So 0 year is just a D2. We're going to leave that as is. 1D4 is the absolute minimum. So this is kind of my scale here. So I'm wondering, should I map this out along statistically so I figure out, like, roughly what the odds are? I wonder. Because then I could map that out pretty easily. And I have the statistics here. So we're not calculating math, but we are starting to look at, like, what that range might look like. Because one of the things that I want to do is, as they're encountering more spells, they shouldn't find, say, an implausible level spell, you know, and be able to cast that. It should be at a halfway decent, like, difficulty. So, let me see here. So, first year... It's primarily simple here. 1D4. Second year. 1D6 to 2D6. What are the odds of... So this is 56%. If they get 2, and then this is 69. See, this is where it's going to get tricky, because if let's say I say, okay, you're going to be using 1D4 to 2D4. But then when we get to this year, if I take away a die, they won't be able to cast spells that have a difficulty of a level of 2 on the tricky. This is where it gets important to make sure this is balanced right. So I think we're going to have to come up with a set of mechanics that will allow players to potentially cast higher level spells. And one of the thoughts I had for this was, oh, Wolf and Raven, where did you go? Which, again, music by the fantastic Wolf and Raven. Oh, nope, there they are. Just took a second. I lost my thought. What was I saying? Yes, so the problem here is if I upgrade this to 2d4 and then, you know, I reduce them down to 1 die, they won't be able to cast second level spells anymore, which is kind of like, excuse me? So maybe we say, I do like the idea of having them potentially reaching 2d4 die, because that's 56%. That's not really high, but when they do succeed, that should like give them a sense of like, oh my god, it actually worked. I kind of like that. That should be like toward the end of the game a little bit more. And then when they get to the second year, roughly, it should be around 2d6. So, and that will still allow them to cast some tricky spells. You know, that's around that 70% margin. And level 1 spells they should be able to cast without much problem. So, keep this at 2d6. Well, let's see how this goes, because, again, we're playing around with that 50% there, so 2d6 to 3d6, potentially. Oh, no. So then when we get to this year, we can introduce d8s. 3d8. Do I want to get them to 4d8 already? Maybe I should d6, d8. Well, actually that works. This is 4th year. We can split that up among the 2 years. So, let's see here. So then when we get to d10s, we should start getting into complex pretty solidly here. So, this will be 3d10 to 4d10. Because then we'll do a little bit of some baffling spells. But again, we're still keeping it around that 50 to 60 margin there. And then d12s, we'll definitely upgrade this to 4d12s to 5d12s. And then, of course, we'll just upgrade this to 5d20. Okay. That's not too bad. I think that works out pretty well. So, for the journey of... So, I would say for this, is like, when they... So, if you're doing, like, the 0 year, starting out with a D2, and then by the time you get to Hogwarts and you're there for, like, a month or something, or whatever it is in-game, then we can upgrade that to a 1D4. Then throughout your time as a first year, you could potentially upgrade some stuff to 2d4. And then second year, get it to 2d6. Third year, 3d6. Fourth year, 3d8. Fifth year, 3d10. Sixth year, 4d10. Seventh year, 4d12 to 5d12. So let me actually spread this out a little bit here. So... I guess it, So So I guess these are suggestions for where Dungeon Masters should roughly have the players. So I don't know why I'm moving this around then. Let me say... Oh, I guess I'm trying to figure out roughly where they should be each year as a guide. So I definitely think that would help Dungeon Masters figure out a few things here and there. Oh, man. I'm tempted to take this off, but my hair is very ghastly to look at. But it is very warm. What to do? Oh, well. Let's see here. 7th year, 6th year, 5th year. Actually, let me copy this. I'm going to just space that out a little bit more. 0 year, 1st year, 2nd year. Come here. Nah, stop it. 3rd year, also a D6. 4th, 5th year. All right, there we go. So I think it's going to be important for the game if I make sure that I provide this as a guide for Dungeon Masters to say you should be roughly around here. But I should also leave something built in game to kind of guide them a little bit toward that, but they can still deviate from it because, you know, each group is potentially going to play for different levels of time. Some may role play more. They may not actually finish a quest, so they may actually do more things before completing a quest before they actually get XP. Which I don't think I'm going to do XP. I think I'm going to do something a little different. Okay. I think I have to take this off. It's too hot. My horrible, horrible hair. Forgive me, I've not been to the barber in ages. It's not too bad, honestly, but it's just too hot to wear that. Okay. I know I've broken the illusion. Let me see here. Okay, so 1st year, 2nd year. So how am I spreading this out here? Do I want to move this over to 3d6? I said maybe move that here. This is 3d10. It's kind of spread out nicely because then that matches at the ends over here. Okay, cool. So that does make it a little bit easier. In fact, I'm just going to get rid of this. So now that I have... This is a pretty good progression because that's going to make sure that we keep those spells within that intended target range. So, yeah, I think that way players won't have to decide if they want another die type or not. It's all going to be tied into the same system. Like, originally what I was thinking is having a point system where players could either purchase another die or purchase another, another level. But I was kind of like wanting to simplify that a little bit. Sure, I think this is a little bit better. I could potentially introduce another type of gameplay where players get to decide that. There's no reason I can't do that, but this is definitely going to make it a lot easier for players to like figure out how they want to do it. Plus, there's another system we need to figure out here. So now that we know. This is actually going to be one whole thing here. Make that a lot larger. Number of dice. And die type. Well, do type? No. Die type. So, I guess we should... Alright, so basically what I need to start doing here is I need to figure out how many points... So if we put points in focus, points in wand work, that gives us an overall skill, how that is going to help us figure out where on this chart players should be. So I have a rough estimate about where I want the range to be in the year here. Ooh. Ugh, I've been sitting for too long. Now we need to start figuring out how that is going to work. So I definitely want their... Keep in mind, players are going to have to choose where they put their points. We've got 3 of the triangle systems here. We've got spellcraft, attributes, and the outward traits or student abilities. I'm still figuring that out. Oh, this is separate, though. Outward traits. So, for example, if you complete a quest, maybe you get, like, 3 points at the end, and you can choose whether to put them all in the spellcraft, put some into attributes and spellcraft, but then you're going to have to choose whether to put them into focus, wand work, or pronunciation. So this is going to be a little tricky here. But the other thing I like about this is if you have different numbers that are added together, they are going to tell you what your different abilities are. So for example, if you have, say, I don't know, a 7 in defense against the dark arts, but only a 5 in charms, your 7 might say, oh, you get to roll 3d6, but your 5 means you only get like 2d4 or something. So I kind of like that aspect to it. So where to go from here? I think... so this is going to be a bit of an assumption, right? Believe it or not, I am not a terribly experienced tabletop gamer. I was sort of late to that game. My background, we're going to chat for a minute here. We're going to take a break from staring at numbers and whatnot. Basically, I just clacked my teeth together. My experience with tabletop RPGs is actually not as expansive as other players. A lot of my experience with like Dungeons and Dragons is where I kind of started out, was actually with the Baldur's Gate games, which I am totally going to replay those again at some point. And I'm familiar with a lot of like RPG concepts. Like I've played a lot of video games, but I've never like I've only gotten tabletop experience within the last 5 years. And that's been me as a dungeon master for Dungeons and Dragons with my my coworkers, which has been a ton of fun. So I've gotten a lot of experience, but I know like what my experience has been, but I don't necessarily know like how many times a week players will play and for how long. I suspect that it is like roughly like once a week for like 2 to 3 hours. Like that's my estimate, which maybe I should put a Twitter poll out there. That might help. Because yeah, why guess? So maybe what I think I'm going to do is, rather than guess, maybe I should get like the average amount of like how many like game sessions people have before they like stop playing an RPG or something. Like I think that might be good, because I think I have an idea of what it is, but it could be very different. So maybe what I'll do is, rather than, you know, run around and keep guessing, I'll get an idea of like what the general like amount of gameplay is and for how long, and then I can kind of figure out where people should be leveling. I can have a better idea of the point system, because if people only play for like, you know, once every 2 weeks or something, and they only get like 3 points, but you need like 20 to even like bump up another level, that's going to be such a grind. So I want to make sure that people are leveling at a decent pace. So what is this? Oh, that's just a new phone thing. So maybe I'll just take some quick notes for now because I don't want this to be XP based. I want this to basically be like every time you complete a mystery or a story, you get story points. And I guess we can also determine like how those points are awarded. Like, for example, like every player always gets 3, but then you could potentially get extras, which I think would be cool because then that's basically going to encourage you to keep playing and doing stuff. So that might be cool. So point based, bare minimum 3, can attain extra for certain. So maybe that's actually something we could do. Next stream is start figuring out. So I'll put a poll out there on Twitter for right now, just to get a sense of things. And then maybe next stream, what we'll do is we'll think about ways to encourage the player to continually explore and try new things out. Because one of the core things of gameplay is you want to, if you want the players to like level up, you have to encourage them to do certain things and reward them for that. Otherwise, it's just going to be go over here, go look at that, go do this thing, and that's boring. If you look at a lot of games today, they will reward you for, you know, finding things, solving puzzles, you know, or it can even be something as simple as if you go explore a little bit, you'll find a shortcut, so that's always fun. But we need to keep a reason for the players. Like, the whole point is to level up their character and, you know, to be able to eventually cast really awesome spells, craft crazy potions, and we need to encourage them to do that by leveling them up. But we need that feedback loop where you have a character, you go on a mission, you do stuff, you get XP points, level up your character, you take on more bigger and baddies and all that kind of stuff. So we need to make sure that whatever point system we have, we are giving them reasons to go do things and rewarding them for going out and doing that. Whether that is potion brewing, you know, solving a mystery, chatting with a ghost, whatever it is, and make it feel Harry Potter while we're at it. Give that Harry Potter experience. So I think we're going to do that next stream. So let me come back over to my big screen over here. So thank you again for watching. I'm going to end the stream here a little early rather than me gabber on for longer and experimenting with a bunch of stuff. So thank you for watching. If you are interested in learning anything game design, you know, let us know. We do a bunch of different courses. We've got Unity stuff. We've got, you know, Scratch stuff for the younger guys and girls. We teach a bunch of classes, not just in game design, but a variety of topics. Definitely encourage you to go check our website out. Consider hitting the subscribe button. That would help us out a lot. Hit the like if you enjoyed this video, and ask questions in the comments. You know, this is very much in an, I wouldn't say a very early stage of development, but it's on the way. You know, I'm getting it closer and closer to where I think we may need to playtest this soon. I'm very excited. So, again, my name is Nick. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you next week at 10 a.m. Bye, guys.